What is a story? A simple definition is a character on a quest to achieve a goal. Now, it's a good start, but it doesn't give us the critical components that make up a story. And it certainly doesn't have enough information for us to analyze and develop our own stories. So let's go through and have a look at a more detailed definition and a whole bunch of the different components that you can use as a criteria as you develop your own stories. A great story is when an event happens to a character that throws their life out of balance. From this event, they must set a goal that they have to achieve. As they struggle to achieve this goal, they come up against greater and greater forces of conflict. And that conflict is in the form of an antagonist, of increased difficulties, of complications, problems, and moral dilemmas. It forces them to make increasingly more difficult decisions until right at the climax of the story, they face their greatest challenge or have to make the most difficult decision, which sees them either achieve their goal, which is an upending, or fail in their goal, which is a downending. But either way, they're in a different place to where they were at the start of the story, and the audience gets an insight into a little aspect of life. Okay, that's a lot of information to take in, so let's break it down into a really useful step-by-step guide. A character, either a protagonist, hero, anti-hero, or group protagonist. An event throws their world out of balance. This is called the inciting incident. They set a goal they must achieve. This is the objective, also called the dramatic question, and it can be worded as, will the protagonist fill in the goal? As they strive to achieve their goal, they encounter conflict. So conflict is drama. Without conflict, you don't have drama. What you have is a portrait, and portraits are boring to watch. So the main conflict will come from the antagonist. So they can be a rival, nemesis, villain, or love interest. The conflict escalates through external obstacles and internally through moral dilemmas and difficult choices. Then the protagonist faces their greatest test. This is the climax of the story, where they either undergo a final confrontation in which they succeed or fail, or they have to make a really painful or difficult decision, and the dramatic question is answered. The protagonist is now in a different place to the start of the story, or they have learned something, giving the audience an insight into an aspect of life. This is the theme of the story. Films as different as Toy Story, Silence of the Lambs, The Hangover, and Casablanca all adhere to these story principles. To get an even greater understanding, we're now going to have a look at a classic screenplay and commercial hit so we can analyze these elements. The film is Stand By Me, one of my favorite all-time films. So Stand By Me is based on the novella The Body, written by Stephen King. It's a coming-of-age comedy story about a gang of 4 friends who set off on a hike to find the body of a missing local boy so they can become famous. The protagonist is Gordy LeChance. Though the film follows the gang of 4 friends, including Chris, Vern, and Teddy, Gordy is the central character of the story. Essentially, the film is a long flashback of him reflecting on this pivotal moment in his childhood. Inciting incident. Vern arrives at the gang's treehouse out of breath and says, "You want to see a dead body?" He then explains he was under his house digging for his lost coin jar and overheard his brother and brother's friend talking about the local missing boy Ray Brower and the fact that they'd found his missing body dead next to the train tracks out in the forest. So the goal or objective of the story, to hike to the body, then report they found it so they can be on the news and famous. Therefore, the dramatic question is, will they find the body and become famous? Antagonist. The rival gang of older bullies, which include Chris and Vern's brothers, but the main antagonist is the leader of the gang, Ace Merrill, who's played brilliantly by Kiefer Sutherland. Complications, conflicts, and problems that they face during the story. So Ace threatens Chris and Gordy physically. They are chased by Chopper, the junkyard dog, and his owner. There's arguments within the group. Whilst crossing a rail bridge, they're nearly run over by a train. They fall into water and are covered by leeches. It's really scary at night. And the internal conflicts, Gordy is struggling with the death of his older brother. and all the four boys, their parents don't value them. Climax, final confrontation. The boys find the body, but the rival gang appear at the same time and they declare that they will be reporting the body to the police and the news, thus stealing the group's chance of fame. A tense standoff ensues and Ace is about to slit Chris's throat with a flick knife when Gordy pulls out a gun and threatens to kill Ace. The rival gang retreats and our friends have won. So the dramatic question is answered. They have found the body, but the experience has changed Gordy. He has matured and makes a difficult decision to call in the location of Ray Brower's body, but anonymously. So Gordy has learnt that becoming famous off the death of a fellow teenager isn't the right way to gain the value they seek. This learning arc with the character is crucial in a coming-of-age story, so this is where they mature through the difficulties of the story. From the climax of this story, the theme is you are not valued for your achievements, but for who you are as a person. We now have a detailed definition of what a story is, but there's 3 crucial questions you need to keep asking your story all the way through the writing process. Now, the material might shift around in your mind, you'll change your ideas, but these 3 questions will remain the same, and they're crucial to writing any great story. The first question is, what does my character want? So this is their goal. The second question, what stops them from getting it? That's the conflict. Third question, what happens if they don't get it? That's what's at stake in the story. Now you're going to do the shortest, most simplest exercise ever as a screenwriter, but one of the most important. You're going to get out a piece of paper and you're going to write those 3 questions down on that piece of paper and stick it up in front of your writing desk. So every day when you're writing, you can keep those things in mind to keep answering those questions.